Hey everyone, Mrs. Hembrook here. I hope you guys are doing all right and you're staying safe out there, and of course, you're practicing. This video is going to be about high notes. I know before we left for break, we've been talking about high notes and how to achieve them and how to get better at them. And we even did a video, some of you guys did a video for national boards for me, which is awesome, thank you. But today, I have a guest. As you know, I am no specialist when it comes to playing high notes or even brass in general, but I try my best. So today, some of you guys have met my husband before when he came to class, and he is going to give you a little tutorial and some pointers, tips, all that fun stuff on how to better achieve high notes. For those of you who are struggling a little bit to get over that hump, or for those of us who want to expand our range and play even higher. So I will let Mr. Hembrook tell you all of the tips and tricks of the trade, and I'll see you at the end.
All right. Hey, guys. My name is Mr. Hembrook, Mrs. Hembrook's husband. I'm not sure if she's introduced me yet, but I am the head middle school director at Horn Lake Middle School. And there I'm in charge of teaching all of the woodwinds and brass classes along with our assistant directors. And this will be my 7th year of teaching. So my goal here today is to help you guys kind of understand some things that might help you increase your playing ability as far as range. So before we even go and do any exercises, we're going to talk a little bit about a few things that need to be correct before you start trying to even pick up your instrument and play. A lot of the time, if we don't have these things learned or the idea kind of in our heads or able to do it correctly, it is much more difficult to actually do it on the instrument. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is your air, your breath, your fuel for the instrument, right? So I talk about in my classes about how air is like fuel for a car. A lot of the times, if you're just driving like a minivan, you just need unleaded fuel, which is pretty basic, right? If you have like a big truck, you need like diesel fuel, right? Because that's a little bit stronger and it can power some bigger machinery. And then if you've got like a sports car, you've got to have like that supercharged, like super great fuel for your car. Otherwise, it just won't run. And that's the same idea with your instrument. Your instrument is like a sports car, like a souped up sports car, or like a jet. It requires really good fuel. So your instrument's only as good as the fuel that you give it. So you have to make sure that the air that you're giving to your instrument is of high quality. So the first way that I usually detect if it's an air issue is if I can hear the students breathe. And I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure Mr. Hart and Mrs. Hembrook have talked about this a lot. When you breathe, we don't want to hear your breath too loudly. Usually if I hear what I call a hiss breath, I can actually hear it in the breath, and you'll see my shoulders move. So I'm going to show you how not to do it. So this is what I look for, and I do not like to see. Something like this. Okay, so 2 things happen. Number 1, my teeth were together, and the breath sounded like a hiss, like you're gasping for air. And I guess more than 2 things happened. My shoulders went up, and I tensed up. Okay, so my chest was tense, my shoulders were tense, which caused my neck to be tense, which causes the pathway that the air goes through to shrink. So instead of it being nice and open, it closes down. Okay, we want that airway to be really full and open. So we want you to take nice big breaths down from your belly. Okay, so when we talk about doing these big breaths, we want you guys to, again, I usually do this in my class, but I'll put my hands on my belly, and I will have the students watch as my stomach gets bigger. And you should feel your stomach fill up like a balloon. Okay? So that's about as loud as I ever want to hear a breath be. I generally like to hear it even quieter than that. Almost like you're Darth Vader in Star Wars or something. So again, you should be seeing that my stomach is moving out and in, and that my shoulders are staying nice and relaxed, and so is my chest. So if I see you move anywhere from the chest up, generally that tells me that you're not getting a good breath. You're using a hiss breath. You're actually using the top portion of your lungs versus the entirety of your lungs, and filling up and pushing that air and moving that air through your body with your diaphragm and with your ab muscles. Okay, so we want to make sure that you're breathing low. I always say breathe low. We want to fill that air up like a balloon. Okay, 2 things that can help you guys with that to visualize it would be, number 1, get a sheet of paper or a straw. So, or you can use both. Okay, so I've got a clear plastic straw, and generally all I do is I do in for 4, out for 4. 4 times, in for 4 counts, out for 8 counts, 4 times, in for 4, out for 12. And then I go down back to 4 and 8, 4 and 4. Then I do 4, in 4, out 2. Then I go into, out 2, in 1, out 1 for about 4 times each. So that's my general breathing routine. I'm not going to do it now, but that's exactly what I do every day in my classes, okay? So again, you can breathe in with the straw. You want to make sure that you're not breathing in through the straw. You're just blowing out. So take like 4 or 5 good breaths. Okay, each time you should have seen my stomach fill up. My shoulders didn't move, okay? So, and you might see some water vapor coming out of the straw. If you're doing it right and using nice full air, that should happen. You should have some like drops of water coming out. Okay, another one is a piece of paper. You just want to hold it up in front of you. I get it as close as you possibly can to your face at first and do a few. So in and out, in 4, out 4. In 4, 4 and 2. And as you get better at it, move the paper further away. And see how long you can hold that paper up. So that's kind of some things that I do to kind of show and visualize that for students. Okay? Another thing you want to make sure that you're doing is while you're blowing your air, you're keeping your teeth apart. Okay? A lot of the times, especially if you're taking a hiss breath or a breath that's just keeping you really tense, what you're going to do, what's going to happen is it's going to feel like you're closing those teeth off or you're gritting. Okay, you're trying to force it out versus just letting your air move freely. Okay, so a good way to kind of like combat that and make sure that you're doing it correctly by keeping your teeth apart is actually take whatever mouthpiece you play on. You could be trumpet, trombone, baritone, tuba, French horn, whatever you're playing. Just take that mouthpiece and put it between your teeth. Make sure it's clean. Okay, put it between your teeth, and you're just going to take a few breaths in and out. Again, don't breathe through the mouthpiece. Okay, so do that a few times and get used to that, how that feels, because you have to keep those teeth apart to make sure all of that air comes out. Otherwise, it's just getting bottled up inside of you, and it's really starting to cause some pressure in your head. Okay. So another thing that we usually talk about is keeping those corners of your mouth firm, as well as the chin flat. Okay, so I'm going to show you the wrong way. It's going to look kind of silly, but this happens a lot of the time when students don't quite understand what to do with their embouchure, their mouth. Sometimes we get a variation called a smile embouchure. It literally looks something like this. Okay, and that's not as strong as the regular embouchure that we like to use, which is almost like a frown. Okay, so again, that sort of looks like this. So you're going to just take your mouth and frown. Okay, so that's just a normal frown, but then you're going to curl the corners of your mouth like that. Okay, so I'll get a little closer. So again, we don't want the smile embouchure. We don't want that. We want frown and curl. Okay. and then that kind of air. So you've probably heard, like, it takes more muscle in your face to frown than it does to smile, and that's completely true. So you need more muscle for the embouchure, because if you're using the smile embouchure, you're engaging less of your muscles, which means you have less control over all of that. Okay. So, and we want to keep that chin flat, and sometimes it kind of looks like this. Like if you're keeping the corners firm, but you're not keeping the chin flat, an air pocket or a bubble could end up getting in there like this. And what happens is that actually starts to weaken the corners of your embouchure, and it causes you to get tired really fast. So one thing that you can do that I actually had to work on a lot in college and after college to play high notes was called the pencil trick. And you can use anything, but I mean, you can use a pencil, you can use anything else that's just kind of like a straight line. And so the name of the game is to keep the pencil straight while just holding it with your lips. You cannot use your teeth. So when you put the pencil in your mouth, it's not going down on your teeth. You're putting it up against your teeth like this. And then you're just going to wrap your lips around that pencil or whatever you decide to use. And you're going to just hold that pencil out in front of you for as long as you can. It's going to start actually, it's almost going to feel like a burn, like not like a burn, but it's going to start getting sore. And what that's doing is actually it's causing your muscles to engage, sort of like you're lifting weights. And just like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Terry Crews or any big bodybuilder that you see, they obviously didn't start as a big muscly guy. They started out with 10 pounds. They did a bunch of reps until they moved up to the next one. So again, it's going to hurt, and you have to make sure that the pencil stays straight. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of show you what I'm looking for. Okay, so something like that, and you can do it for as long as you want. But again, we're not using the teeth. If you use the teeth, it's cheating, and you're not actually building any muscle. But what that'll do after time is it actually keeps the muscles in the bottom chin used to being flexed and up against your bottom teeth, which then helps reinforce the size of your embouchure. Okay, so that's really important. Okay, once all of those things are pretty good, or you feel like you're able to do all of those pretty successfully, then we move on to some sirens. Okay, so I do sirens kind of just however you like to do. Just make sure that you understand what your goal is. Your goal is to start at a low note or a high note and progressively move down or up. Okay, just like a siren you'd hear on a police car or an ambulance or a fire truck. Okay, and the goal is not necessarily how high you get, but it's how smoothly you move through those notes. Because the smoother you move through them, it means you have more control over your embouchure, which then, if you have more control, your muscles are stronger, and when your muscles are stronger, you can play higher. Okay, so again, even if you're not able to get up into the stratosphere right now, it's about how smoothly you move through those notes. Okay, so sort of like this. Okay, so something like that. You can start high and come low. Okay, or low and come high. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do there. And a lot of the time I have my kids just learn some kind of, maybe it's like a song or a theme from a TV show, just buzz along. That's what I did a lot when I was in middle school, was I would just buzz along with the TV, and that made my lips just used to doing that, which helped me get a better sound. Another thing is long tones. Okay, this thing called long tones, where you just pick a note. I generally start on middle C, open, and I work my way down to low G. So C, B natural, B flat, A flat, G. Okay? And you can even do low F sharp, which is just all three. Okay? And then what I do is I generally play about 8 counts on each note, going down and then coming back up to C. And what that does is it just gets your embouchure and all those muscles and your air used to playing notes for a long time, which then, if you don't understand or if you catching the trend now, the longer you can do it, the smoother you can do it, the more control you have over those muscles, which then helps you get stronger and you're able to play the notes that are higher. Okay? So again, start on a low note and go down. 8 counts at a time. I don't have a metronome right now, but make sure you have a metronome for 8 counts. Okay, and then I would go back up. All right. So again, the whole time I'm doing that, I'm keeping my embouchure nice and relaxed. I'm thinking awe and keeping my teeth apart to help me get those low notes out. Because remember, the lower the notes that you have, the warmer the sound, the warmer the air. Okay. And again, this is all building towards playing high notes. It's just like a big skyscraper building. Those big buildings, they drill deep down into the ground, hundreds of feet, and they pour concrete bases and put steel way down, because the lower you can make those buildings, the taller they can be. Same thing with your embouchure. The lower you can play more consistently with a good sound, the higher you should be able to play, because those muscles are so strong in that low register where everything's just really relaxed. Okay, so after that, we want to work on something called lip slurs. You may or may not have done anything with lip slurs this year, but basically what that means, it's sort of like a slur from one note to another. You've probably done slurs. So again, you're not using your tongue between the two notes. You will use your tongue to start the first note. And then I generally do lip slurs on notes with the same fingering. You can, and that's generally how lip slurs are done, with the same fingering. So generally what I will do is I'll try to start on a C, but if you can't hit a C right now, maybe you start on a low C, so middle C, instead of the one that's 4 spaces in the staff. And then you would move up to the next partial. So for me right now, that would be going from like C to G. So something like this. So, and while you're doing that, you want to think ah ee ah ee ah ee ah ee ah, because what that's doing is it's training your muscles from going from low to high. It's almost like you're just taking that weight in the gym and you're lifting. You're going ah ee ah ee ah ee ah ee ah, and you're literally doing reps. You're moving that muscle in your mouth. You're building that muscle. Okay, so as you're doing that, you progressively go higher. So then I would go up to D. So 1 and 3, third valve slide. So on and so forth. So you just kind of want to go through that and start on the low note, go to the high note. You can also start on the high note and go low. So again, I'm going to go from like C on the 4th space down to G. So again, we want to think on that one, since I'm starting high and going low, I'm thinking E, ah, E, ah. Okay? So again, you really want to make sure that you're moving the tongue. And sometimes I move my eyebrows. I may have been moving my eyebrows. And that actually is somehow connected through a muscle in your face to your soft palate, which helps raise the back of your mouth, which actually helps your air go up and faster to play those notes up there. Okay? So after that, we also do some stuff called flow studies. I think Mr. Hart might have some flow studies that he's written for you. I'll just do one that I kind of know by heart. But basically, I'm just going through a set of notes, and I'm progressively going from a middle note to a low note up to a higher note. And each time, I'm just kind of moving through that. Okay. So here's one that I use all the time, and here's what it sounds like. Sorry about that mess up. I forgot for a second what I was doing. Yeah, so that's called the Jack Stamp exercise. So if you don't have that book, that'd be a good book to get. It's a Jack Stamp lip slur book. It's really really good, and it helped me a lot when I was building my range. Okay. Um, and then range building. So generally what I do here is I kind of make this a game. I'll start on a note and I'll go up 4 notes every time. So like I'm going to start on low C, and then I'll go up C, D, E, F. Then I'll go back down to D, D, E, F, G. And I'll just keep going and going and going until I can see how high I can play. So here's kind of what I'm talking about here. Um, Okay, so something like that. And each time it can go fast or slow. I kind of just a fast version there just because of time. I'm trying to make sure we get through all this. But you can make it as slow as you want and as high as you'd like. So I'm going to go up and do the higher stuff right now. So something up there. Okay. And a lot of the time when I'm thinking about when I blow those really, really fast notes is fast, cold air. And I'm actually thinking about blowing straight down in the mouthpiece. That when you firm up, it actually angles the air down. And so if I'm thinking for those high notes, I want to angle that air down because that's going to hit the cup in the mouthpiece and push it out of the instrument really fast. And again, sometimes when you're doing some of this stuff, you're going to feel something called back pressure. And that's the instrument actually pushing back on you. And what we usually say is breathe or blow through those notes. So again, we want to try to prevent all that tension and all of that hiss breath stuff. So all of the things I've been talking about should help you just blow through those notes. A lot of the time, and this happened with me too, when we got to those higher notes, we instantly shut down and stopped using our air, and we tried focusing on just like firming up as hard as we can, getting that note out because I gotta force it out and make it really good. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. If you don't have the fuel, the air to back it up, and have all of that strong embouchure, the tongue in the right place, thinking E and lifting the soft palate, all of those things are really important to just kind of do on autopilot almost. Like I almost don't think about it anymore. But at this point, when you guys are in 6th grade, you really got to think about putting all those kind of components together, sort of like a puzzle, right? So you have to think about it a lot right now, and hopefully once you do it more and more and more, it'll be a lot easier for you. Okay. So again, even when I was out of college, like recently this past year, I've started thinking about, just blowing more and using more air with a firm embouchure. And that has really opened up my playing. I'm playing, really high now and, with a good sound. So I'll play a few notes for you, and I'm thinking about my air. I'm thinking about blowing through the notes, keeping my teeth open, keeping my embouchure firm. Those handlebar type edges of my embouchure, I'm curling down, not smiling. I've practiced my long tones to make sure I can play those notes for a long period of time. I've done my lip slurs, so I've lifted my weights. I'm thinking ah, e, ah, e. I'm doing flow studies just to make sure I'm blowing through a lot of different notes with the same kind of air. And I've done that range building where I've started on low notes and gone up. Okay. And so all of those things put together will eventually help you guys get to these upper notes. And again, it won't happen overnight. It's not going to just magically just happen in a day. It takes a thing called consistency. You have to do it a little bit every day. And if you don't, it'll be hard for it to help you progress. Okay, so here's a few just high notes. So I'll start really low and go up. So way up there. Okay, so all of those things are really important if you want to start playing some high notes. Okay, and we always want you to make sure that you're playing with the most beautiful sound that you can. So again, it's not about how strong you can be and force that note out. It's about how much air you can use to support and make yourself sound beautiful. Okay? So, again, play at least 20 minutes every day, be consistent, and use all of those things. You don't necessarily have to do every single one of those things I talked about together every day. You can do breathing one day, lip slurs another day, embouchure, blowing one day, flow studies another day. But do some of it because in the long run, it's going to help you get to those notes that you want to play. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful. I know I've talked a lot. I hope that again you've taken something away from this. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask Mrs. Hembrook, and I'll be able to answer them. And again, this is not a miracle cure. This is going to take some hard work and determination. And again, I would take anybody who works hard versus somebody with talent any day. And if you've got both, it's even better. Okay. So again, thank you guys for listening. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. And if you need anything else, let me know.
Well, I hope the tips and tricks that Mr. Hembrook showed you guys will be beneficial. Might be something that you have to work through for a while and to find the sweet spot for yourself. But in any case, I hope that the 10 main points that he made are going to be helpful for you guys. So if you guys have any questions about anything that he talked about in the video, or you've been practicing these steps here, but something still isn't happening, you can email me, you can message me on Teams, anything like that, for a specific question for Mr. Hembrook or myself on ways that you can work through this. But anyway, I hope that you guys found this beneficial. In regards to that second video I talked about before break, if you remember those who were in my video for national boards, because of everything going on, that video has been postponed to a later date. So you don't have to worry about that right now, but keep working on all of these studies and improving on our high notes so we can make that video just as good. Keep working through your book, keep working on your scales. As you know, that is a final for the end of the year, so keep working on those scales even though we're not together. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. So hopefully you found this beneficial, like I said before. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me. I can relay that information to Mr. Hembrook as well if you have a question for him. But in any case, stay safe and keep on trucking on your instrument. Keep practicing. And until next time, guys, see ya.